Chapter 71. The air in Kaelen's self-declared domain hummed with a new kind of tension. It was no longer the chaotic, disorienting energy of the Sovereign, but the cold, absolute order of the Warden. The grey stone underfoot felt more real than the entire mirrored city had. For the first time since stepping into the breach, his team could breathe. The momentary reprieve shattered the perfect coordination of their mirror selves. The doppelgangers, deprived of the Sovereign's constant, guiding illusion, became clumsy, their movements a half-second behind. Silas saw the opening. With a roar that was pure, undiluted fury, he feinted high against his double. When Mirror Silas raised his axe to block, the real Silas dropped low and swept his legs out. The double crashed to the ground, and Silas's axe fell in a final, decisive arc. Lyra didn't need an opening. The moment the domain stabilized, she simply stopped trying to outthink her copy. She took the shot she knew her mirror self would also take. 2 rifle reports echoed as one. Both rounds flew true. But Lyra's, fired in a world now governed by Kaelen's reality, struck a millisecond faster, shattering her double's rifle and then her head. Jax, pinned on the ground, watched as the blade at his throat wavered. His mirror self looked confused. That was all he needed. He headbutted the double, rolled, and drove his own short sword up under its chin. Rorik ended his fight most simply of all. He stopped pushing back. He dropped his shield, grabbed his mirror self by the armor, and with a grunt of immense effort, hurled the perfect copy directly into a now stable stone wall. The impact was sickeningly final. In the space of 10 seconds, the tide had turned. The Obsidian Star team stood panting, surrounded by dissolving silver glass, their eyes fixed on Kaelen and the Sovereign. The featureless chrome mask regarded Kaelen. The surprise was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating stillness. A localized reality anchor. The Sovereign's voice mused, a hint of academic curiosity in the psychic tone. The nascent Warden learns a new trick. But how long can you hold it, little bird? Your core is still so young. Chapter 72. Kaelen could feel the strain. Maintaining the domain was like holding up a collapsing building with his bare hands. His core integrity was draining at an alarming rate, ticking down by 1% every few seconds. The Sovereign was right. He couldn't hold this forever. He had to end this now. He lunged, the Warden's blade cutting a silent, black arc through the stabilized air. The Sovereign didn't bother to dodge. He raised a hand, and a shield of perfect, diamond-hard mirror materialized in front of him. Kaelen's blade struck it. There was no clang of metal, only a sound like a universe sighing. The mirror shield didn't shatter. Instead, the point of impact turned a deep, void-like black, and a web of cracks spread outwards, not through the shield, but through the idea of the shield. The mirror simply ceased to be, unraveling into motes of light that were consumed by Kaelen's blade. The Sovereign recoiled, a flicker of genuine alarm crossing his posture. Kaelen's weapon didn't just cut objects. It severed the mana constructs that held them together. And Nullblade, the Sovereign hissed, a crude, but effective, tool against refinement. He gestured, and the world outside Kaelen's 50-foot domain reacted violently. Dozens of mirrored buildings bent and twisted, their glass peeling away like petals to form giant, humanoid figures, reflection golems. They began hammering at the edge of Kaelen's domain with fists made of shattering cityscape. The grey stone at the domain's edge flickered with each impact. "He's trying to break your hold," Silas yelled. "We'll handle the golems. You finish this." Without waiting for a reply, Silas, Lyra, Jax, and Rorik charged to the perimeter, meeting the giant constructs with a volley of gunfire, axe blows, and sheer, defiant force. They were buying him time, the most precious resource he had. Chapter 73. Alone in the center of his shrinking domain, Kaelen faced the Sovereign. The crow-masked figure began to circle him, his movements fluid and unnerving. "You fight for them," the Sovereign taunted, gesturing towards Kaelen's struggling friends. "But what do they truly know of you? Do they know the hunger you feel when you consume? The cold joy of absolute command? You are not their savior. You are a Sovereign, like me. You simply wear a different mask." He raised his hands, and new reflections appeared within the domain itself. Not copies, but visions. Kaelen saw himself on a throne of twisted phantom cores, the city burning below him, his risen army an endless, dark sea. He saw Silas and the others kneeling before him, their eyes empty of everything but fear. This is your true potential. The voice whispered seductively. Why mend a broken world when you can rule its pieces? Join me. Together, we can shatter the system and build a new one from the glass. A world of perfect, beautiful order. The vision was compelling. It tapped into the dark undercurrent of power he had felt in the Ironheart foundries, the part of him that enjoyed the consumption. For a terrifying second, he was tempted. But then he saw another reflection, flickering at the edge of the vision. The dying Warden, entrusting him with the core. He saw the Veilsinger's sad smile. He saw Jack's clapping him on the back, Lyra's grudging respect, Silas's grim determination to protect him. He saw a reason to build, not just break. My order isn't built on lies, Kaelen said, his voice steady. He raised his blade. It's built on truth. And the truth is, you're a parasite. And I'm the cure. He dismissed the domain. Chapter 74. The sudden collapse of the reality anchor was a tactical gamble. The reflection golems, suddenly without resistance, stumbled forward. Silas and the others, expecting the push, were ready and cut them down from their exposed flanks. But the real target was the Sovereign. The moment the domain vanished, the Sovereign's own power rushed back in to fill the void. For a single, crucial moment, he was overextended, his control momentarily unbalanced. Kaelen moved. He didn't run. He flowed, his body enhanced by the core, a blur of ashen grey and silver light. He closed the distance before the Sovereign could recalibrate his defenses. The Warden's blade stabbed forward, aimed directly at the featureless chrome mask. The Sovereign brought his hands up in a crossblock, not to stop the blade, but to catch it. His palms slammed together on the flat of the void-black sword. And they held. A shockwave of pure psychic force erupted from the point of contact, throwing Kaelen's teammates off their feet, and shattering every remaining window for a block. Kaelen grunted, his muscles screaming as he pushed against the Sovereign's impossible strength. Fool, the Sovereign's voice was a roar in his mind. You think a simple blade can end me? I am reflection. I am every lie you've ever told yourself. I am. His tirade was cut short. A look of confusion crossed his posture. He looked down. While Kaelen had engaged him directly, he had given one last, silent command through his optimized swarm intelligence. Smoke, the risen imp, had not been fighting golems. It had been waiting, cloaked in its own innate stealth, clinging to the Sovereign's shadow. And as the Sovereign focused all his power on stopping the Warden's blade, Smoke had phase-shifted its tiny, shadowy hand into the Sovereign's chest. It wasn't an attack. It was a delivery. The imp held a small, dark red core, the C-rank core of the Rust Hulk from the Ironheart foundries, thrumming with rage-aspected mana. And it left it there, inside the Sovereign's metaphysical form. Chapter 75. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. The Sovereign of Reflection was a being of pure, ordered illusion. The Rust Hulk's core was a knot of raw, chaotic, industrial rage. The two energies were fundamentally incompatible. The Sovereign screamed, a sound of shattering crystal and tearing metal. His polished form flickered violently. The chrome of his mask bubbled and warped, showing glimpses of something twisted and agonized beneath. Jagged, rusty spikes of corrupted energy burst from his shoulders and back. The perfect mirror of his being was now a fractured, stained window. What have you done? His voice was a distorted, multi-layered shriek. I introduced a contradiction, Kaelen said coldly, pressing his blade forward against the Sovereign's weakening grip. You can't reflect rage this pure. It has no logic, no symmetry. It just is. The Sovereign's control over the mirrored city shattered. The expanding maze froze, the reflections fracturing into meaningless patterns of light. The remaining mirage weavers writhed and dissolved, their connection to their master severed. The association forces, suddenly freed from the cognitive assault, began to rally, mopping up the disoriented phantoms. The battle was over. All that remained was the execution. Chapter 76. The Sovereign stumbled back, his form glitching between his elegant self and a monstrous, rust-covered aberration. He was unraveling from the inside. It burns. He wailed, clawing at his own chest. This filth. This imperfection. Kaelen advanced. His warden's blade held ready. He felt no triumph, only a cold necessity. This was what he was made for. You preyed on doubt and secrets. Kaelen said. But you never understood that truth isn't about being perfect. It's about being whole. Flaws and all. He raised the blade for a final strike. Wait, the sovereign pleaded, his voice desperate. I can give you power. Secrets. The locations of the other sovereigns. The association's plans. Kaelen paused, the blade hovering. Information was a powerful weapon. But he looked at the twisted, suffering creature before him. A being whose entire existence was a lie. Now poisoned by a truth it could not bear. Keeping him alive, even imprisoned, was a risk he could not take. The corruption of the Rusthulk's core would eventually consume him entirely, potentially creating something even worse. There is only one thing you can give me, Kaelen said. He plunged the warden's blade into the sovereign's chest. There was no blood. The chrome mask cracked down the middle. The sovereign's form solidified for a moment into a perfect, beautiful statue of glass. And then it exploded inward, collapsing into a single, shimmering point of light. That was immediately drawn into the paradox core within Kaelen. There was no violent assimilation, no struggle. The sovereign's power, now purified of its corrupting will, was simply integrated. Assimilation complete. Sovereign of reflection, purged. Assimilation authority, C to B. Core integrity, 100%. New trait acquired, reflective insight. Grants enhanced perception and ability to detect facades. New risen capacity, 50 out of 50. The mirrored city around them wavered, and then dissolved like mist in the morning sun, revealing the real, battle-scarred commercial sector underneath. Silence fell, broken only by the moans of the wounded and the distant sirens of association medics. Chapter 77. The aftermath was chaos. Association teams swarmed the area, securing the now-dormant dungeon gate and tending to their wounded. Director Valeriana was everywhere at once, her voice sharp with command, but her eyes kept scanning the area, looking for something. Or someone. Obsidian Star gathered at their rally point, a side alley away from the main thoroughfare. They were battered, exhausted, but alive. Jax let out a whoop, grabbing Kaelen in a bone-crushing hug. You did it. You crazy son of a gun. You actually did it. You killed a sovereign. Lyra simply nodded at Kaelen. A world of respect in that single gesture. Good shot with the imp. I didn't even see it. Rorik placed a massive, gentle hand on Kaelen's shoulder. Strong, he rumbled. Silas looked at Kaelen, his expression unreadable. That, domain. And the blade. That was the smith's work. Kaelen nodded, flexing the hand wearing the Ashen bracer. It was. Silas let out a low whistle. Remind me to never get on his bad side. His face grew serious. We need to disappear. Now. Valeriana is no fool. She'll know a simple dungeon break doesn't end with the dungeon just vanishing. She'll be looking for the variable. For us. As if on cue, Director Valeriana's voice called out from the entrance to the alley. Silas. A word. They turned. Valeriana stood there, flanked by two of her elite guards. Her gaze swept over them, lingering on Kaelen for a fraction of a second too long. That was a remarkable stabilization. She said, her voice carefully neutral. The spatial anomaly has completely collapsed. Your sensory specialist must have quite the talent. Her eyes locked onto Kaelen. The association could use someone with such a proactive approach to dungeon management. It was an offer. And a threat. Silas stepped forward, putting himself between Valeriana and Kaelen. My specialist is under an exclusive contract, Director. And he's very tired. We are all very tired. Unless you're here to process our hazard pay, we'll be taking our leave. Valeriana's smile was thin and cold. Of course. Your payment will be processed. But do think about my offer, Hunter Kaelen. The world is changing. It's always best to be on the winning side. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking on the pavement. The message was clear. The battle was won. But the war with the association had just begun. Chapter 78. They returned to the warehouse as the sun rose. painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The familiar, dusty space felt like a fortress after the surreal horror of the mirrored city. No one spoke much. The adrenaline had faded, leaving behind a deep, bone-weary exhaustion, and the grim understanding of what they had just accomplished, and what it meant for their future. Kaelen retreated to the small bunk Silas had given him. He sat on the edge of the cot, looking at the ashen bracer on his arm. He willed the Warden's blade to manifest. The sword of void and starlight appeared in his hand, silent and deadly. He had killed a sovereign. He had absorbed its power. His authority was now B rank, a level that would place him among the elite if it were ever officially recorded. He could feel the new potential humming within him, the reflective insight sharpening his senses, the expanded capacity for risen, the deeper well of power from the core. He was becoming what the Warden had intended, a true power in a broken world. But the cost was written on the tired faces of his friends. They had stood with him, fought for him, risked everything for him. They were no longer just a cover. They were his comrades, his anchor to the humanity he was slowly leaving behind. A soft knock came at the door. It was Silas. He entered, holding 2 glasses and a bottle of amber liquid. "Medicinal," he said, pouring a generous measure into each glass and handing one to Kaelen. They drank in silence for a moment. "That domain," Silas said finally. "Can you do it again?" "Bigger," Kaelen replied. "And for longer." "Now that I know how." Silas nodded, staring into his glass. "Valeriana won't stop. She knows. Maybe not everything, but enough. We are on her radar now. And that's a dangerous place to be." "I know. We need to get stronger," Silas said, his voice low and intense. "All of us. Not just you. If we are going to be your spear, we can't be made of wood. We need to be adamantine." He looked at Kaelen. "The smith. Can he help us? Not with fancy swords, but with the basics. Better gear. Better intel." Kaelen thought of Dorian's workshop. The impossible devices. "I think he can." "Then that's our next move," Silas said, draining his glass. "We lean into this. No more hiding in the shadows. We become the best damn specialists this city has ever seen. We make ourselves so useful, so powerful, that the association can't touch us without causing an uproar. We build our own power base, right under their noses." He stood up, placing a hand on Kaelen's shoulder. "Get some rest, kid. You earned it. Tomorrow, we start building our fortress." Chapter 79. Kaelen didn't sleep. He sat in the quiet of the warehouse, his consciousness expanding through his connection to his risen. He had 50 slots now. He mentally reviewed his army. The 4 Rustsworn stood as his officers, silent and loyal. The Wisp, Ember, floated as a support unit. A dozen skitterlings were his scouts and skirmishers. The rest were a mix of corpse rats and other assorted D-rank phantoms. A solid core of infantry. But it felt unstructured. A collection of soldiers, not an army. Inspired by Dorian's optimization, he began to mentally reorganize them. He created squads, assigning leaders and roles. A scout squad led by Smoke. An assault squad built around the Rustsworn. A harassment squad of the fastest skitterlings. The swarm intelligence firmware allowed him to set standing orders, creating a true chain of command. The mental effort of controlling them diminished even further, the process becoming as natural as breathing. This was the power of the Smith's upgrade. It wasn't just a new tool. It was a new way of thinking, a way to scale his power beyond the limits of his own direct attention. He opened his hand, and a small, shimmering piece of the mirror maze appeared above his palm. A harmless, stable illusion. A tiny spark of the Sovereign's refined power, now his to command. Reflective insight. He was no longer just absorbing raw power. He was learning its secrets, its principles. The Ashen Crow was not just growing stronger. It was evolving. Chapter 80. The next morning, Kaelen found Dorian waiting for them in the warehouse. The stocky man was sipping coffee from a thermos, looking utterly at home amidst the dust and discarded training equipment. "I heard you had a lively night," Dorian said by way of greeting. "Successfully field-tested the hardware, I see." "We did," Kaelen said. "We need your help again." Dorian's eyebrows rose. Already. You work fast. His eyes scanned the rest of the team. Ah. You want to upgrade the whole set. Silas stepped forward. We can pay. And we can provide services. But we need an edge. All of us. Dorian looked them over, his gaze lingering on their worn gear. HMPH. I'm an artist, not a mass production factory. But you did eliminate a significant nuisance. And a grateful craftsman is a generous one. He pointed at Silas. Your axe is a museum piece. I can reforge it with a monomolecular edge and a shock-dampening core. It'll cut through tank armor. He pointed at Lyra. Your rifle is adequate, but your ammunition is pathetic. I'll provide you with 100 rounds of phased mana penetrators. They'll ignore most kinetic barriers. He pointed at Jax. You rely on speed. I've got a set of reactive weave armor that'll make you twice as fast and half as easy to hit. He pointed at Rorik. And you, big man. That shield is too small. I'll build you a new one. A tower shield with an integrated inertial negation field. You'll be able to stop a freight train. He finished his coffee. Consider it a signing bonus for being on the winning team. He then turned his full attention to Kaelen, his expression turning serious. But for you, the Real work begins now. You've reached B-rank authority. You've purged a sovereign. You've unlocked a domain. He leaned in close. It's time for your next lesson. It's time you learned what the Weavers are, and why you need to find them before the other sovereigns do. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Because the Weavers don't just mend reality, son. They can unmake it. And one of them has gone very, very rogue.